Hello, this is your instructor Daniel Chang for Character Design, and 133. And This week we're going to talk about skins and accessories that we can change and add on to our characters to give them alternate themes. Now, we had already kind of done something similar to this from the other end when we were trying to discover what kind of character we wanted. So you might be able to pilfer from some of those ideas as well. Meaning like, we had like the different thumbnail styles, back when we were trying to explore our characters. And some of those ideas may come back for your alternate skins. The key thing to alternate skins, there's like I I'd say like there's like three different levels of complexity that you would want to go through, and with each level of complexity, the more rare or valuable that might be. A lot of games, they monetize their games simply through the DLCs because their games are free to play or something like that. They sell the skins, and that's actually where they make the money. And so that's where they actually put a lot of effort into it. I know that a lot of people don't like it, but I mean, how are you going to get a free game otherwise, right? So, you got everything here. What is this? From Fortnite, right? So you got these like premium bundle, premium skins, right? And, in the premium stuff, you would want to change up more than say like a character's color or something like that. Oh, yeah, which brings me up to the different levels, right? Level one would be just a simple color swap out. We've already done that for our color variants, um, our cover color variants assignment last week. And so that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is like let's add a different accessory to them and and level them up, into something else, right? Um, you might think to yourself, "Hey Dan, I don't wanna make video games. My character's like a comic book or a cartoon or something like that." Well, cartoons they have this all the time. Here you got SpongeBob, in his various episodes. Now in this, right? Like, this would just be adding accessories onto SpongeBob, right? A new hat, new costume bits, attachment onto him, maybe a new helmet or something like that, maybe a little bit of makeup, but like SpongeBob is still the same shape and still SpongeBob. Now, so that'd be like tier number two, right? Like when you do levels of difficulty. Level three difficulty would be like if you completely change out the body type of the character, right? That's actually like you just got to make the character from scratch at that point. So it might, because you got to rig it different, you got to, all that. But so that brings us to level three is like a complete change out of what the character looked like originally, right? Um, whereas like say for example, Mercy here, she's got all these variants, and we could talk about the variants too and ideas for variants as well. But like, all of these versions of her, it's they change up the geometry here, right? But you can see overall she's still kind of is using the same rig, which means that she'll be using the same animations that she always has. They don't have to retarget the animations to a different rig. If suddenly Mercy was like 8 feet tall, uh, that would be a completely different story, right? Um, let's talk about the different themes now. Oftentimes you'll get a theme for holidays, so this is like her Halloween skin or something like that, where they go a bit more dark with her, and that's where if the character's well established enough to be this like character with wings, you gotta like think to yourself, what are the aspects that we keep on the character to So she's got to have a weapon that she holds that's some kind of a staff weapon, and she's got to have glowing wings. I think that's about it. They didn't even keep the halo here, right? They changed it up and gave her kind of a demon-looking helmet and, made her look almost like Widowmaker. Um, but in any case, yeah, so that's like one theme. This is another holiday theme. I think this was for like Year of the Tiger, Chinese New Year. So she's like got this Asian stuff all over her. And I don't know, she doesn't, yeah, they changed her hair color too, so she doesn't quite look as Caucasian, She's got the makeup and I don't know, she still kind of looks like a white lady wearing Asian clothes, but um and here's another thing that's kind of interesting. Charities, right? So sometimes they'll have a different skin based on a charity event of some sort. So this is for breast cancer awareness, Breast Cancer Research Foundation right here with the pink. And so it's got to have the color pink onto it. And so they changed it up, but not just like it wasn't just a simple, let's just make her original costume pink. Let's change it up so that, the skin's a little bit more special. Like they're putting, they're like, hey, look, we're giving you something new here, right? And something that the fans might like, as well as you know, um, good in our charity. Like usually with these type of skins, they'd want either a portion or the entire amount made to go towards that charity. So the company doesn't quite make money off of something like this, but they get a lot of goodwill out of it. Plus, they put it towards a cause, right? Um, these are other themes that aren't necessarily holiday or charity related, but they're just like epic versions that they think that the fans would like, Here she is in a different time period, right? Like she's still a little cyber wing, but she's also very fantasy right here, right? And then this one is like full cyber mercy, version. Y'all kind of get what I'm talking about with the different themes, right? For the characters, superheroes we get it all the time. Iron Man has a suit for every occasion when he needs to lift heavy things. He's got Igor when he's got, he goes to outer space. He's got the Star Boost one, you know. Yeah, when he needs to fight the Hulk, he's got the Hulk Buster back there, right? Um, and let's see. Oh, this is another idea too for the different themes, and that is like when you get into the Spider-Verse, thinking about like, hey, there's an infinite multiverse out there, and that there's all these different possibilities. Well, guess what? They can sell a lot of action figures and make a whole other movie franchise just based on different types of Spider-Man. And Spider-Man doesn't necessarily need to be a man anymore at that point. They could do some gender swaps, and you'd have Spider-Woman, you have Spider-Gwen and all these other type of characters out there, right? And some of them aren't even like fully human. Some of them have like multiple arms or whatever it might be, right? So you can really play around once you get into like that level of like popularity where like, all you got to do is determine to yourself, I want to keep that Spider-Man logo or something somewhere on there, or I want to keep like just, this kind of mask shape on them, and then we could just call it a spider person. Yeah, from there, right? Same thing here for the Spider-Man game. They got all these different DLC suits, from the past and based on those other types of spider people. And also Batman, Batman's had, he's just been around for a long time, and different artists have had different takes on him. I'm not exactly asking you to change up your art style. Like for example, on this one, and it's a fairly realistic game, but then they got the cartoony version of Batman, and they're not asking you to change it up where, you go from like cartoony to realistic or vice versa. I'm just asking for like an accessory change. So like something like this guy right here on Spider-Man would be more applicable, where they now gave him a cyborg arm and like a little cyborg eye thing, and you could see like he's kind of hurt, so he's got some bandages on him. That's like the level we're talking about here. Or something like these mercies right here, right? Um, and if you want, you can go as far as like changing up the body type to be like a upgraded version, but just know that that's rare. Uh, we rarely see that happen. Uh, Say for example in the world of video games, because change up the rig completely, it's basically at that point you've got a brand new character that you've got to make at that point. Let's see here. Yeah, so here's another idea too, as far as like I'm taking from SpongeBob. The different costumes could be themed based around time travel, different time periods of a character, or different occupations that the character might want to take on, right? Boxing, or being a musician or a rock star, that kind of thing. And you could see there's costume changes and accessory changes that go along with that. So that is the theme. So for our assignment, at first I wanted us to do like two variants of the protagonist and two variants of the antagonist, but then as I thought about it, it's like, wow, that's a lot of work, and I'm pretty sure like if I made you do four different variants, they're all gonna be kind of, simple and bland. And so it depends, if you've got a simple character you want to do more, go at it, if you got a simple character, you can take on both your protagonist and antagonist. That'd be great. Or if you have a complex character, just take on your protagonist and give me two other variants of your character. Okay. I'm gonna leave it open to for you to do what you want. The fulfillment of the assignment is one thing, but like your portfolio is really what you're after at the end of the day, right? It's not just about, oh, I just want to get the points for this class. It's about like, I want a kick-ass portfolio. And so I want to do this as much as I can and show off my abilities on doing these type of themes and things like this, as much as I can. So there we go. This part of the lecture. Next week we're gonna get to drawing. Okay, here I've got written down the different things. So one of the things that you've got to kind of determine for yourself is, on your characters, what are the things that you need to keep on the characters, and what are the things that you can change on the characters? Sometimes there might be certain things that if you change it on your characters, it kind of ruins the character. Well, it makes the character a different character altogether, right? I don't know, Wolverine's claws, like Wolverine without claws is kind of just a generic brawler type character, right? Um, so you want to think to yourself, what are the elements of my character that I have to keep? And I would say, write down 3 to 4 different I you know things on your character. So, this character's an elf, so the elf ears I think are definitely a thing I want to keep. Her body shape overall I think is pretty important to her character, sort of like a uh, short, athletic, kind of pixie body, right? Petite almost, body type. Um, uh, the hair, maybe I could put a helmet over that hair, and then that might change. But yeah, that's kind of like a, let's say maybe, right? And then lastly, if you have like any logos or decals on your character that kind of say who they are, so like she's got this Raven logo right here, I could keep that. This like sometimes the logo's all you need. Like for example, Batman, that logo. When you think of that logo, you think of Batman. You think of Spider-Man's logo, you think of Spider-Man. Wolverine doesn't quite have a logo. He's just got the claws, right? So, over here, make a list of things on your character that you can change, as long as you're changing it to something that is a relevant, you know, to like an equivalent, right? So you want to change it into something like, for example, the wrench. If I change the wrench to a battle axe, it's got to be like an axe that's like just as big, right? But then it will kind of change the character. So maybe on that battle axe, I might want to cut a notch into it so that she could still, use it as a wrench, even if it's not adjustable. Um, and then, maybe her belt can change into something else as well. Yeah, that's the idea. The cybernetic stuff, as long as I keep it kind of metal and cybernetic, um, I can change the design on it, right? So that can change. And then here we talk about the different themes, right? The different themes that we can tackle. Holiday themes, She already looks perfect for Halloween. Like I can add some orange onto her and she'd just be prime time for Halloween, right? Charities, right? If you actually feel like if you're involved in a charity or you feel like you want to, you know, uh, make your character, support a certain charity, uh, you can have that and then imbue the logos or the themes of that charity into your character. So like for example, if your charity is World Wildlife Foundation, then you might want to have some kind of like a ecological theme to your character to sort of help save endangered species, right? So then there might be like a panda version of this or whatever it might be, right? Um, and then you got epic skins, which is like upgrade this to the nth degree, right? A lot of times, what they also do for epic skins is they'll make things gold or some kind of, like diamond or some fancy materials, right? Make it shiny, that kind of thing. That way, when people see it, they'll be impressed, or at least you think they'll be impressed when you buy it. I don't know why people buy these things, but yeah, sometimes you just get tired of looking at the same character all the time and you just want something that's a little special, I guess. And when I say environmental here, I was thinking like this character might need to like, I don't know, go to an underwater base or something at some point. And so then, I'm thinking a lot on, Iron Man and Batman, right? Like he's got, Iron Man goes to outer space, he has a star boost suit. What if this character actually went to outer space? What's her spacesuit version look like? Or or if she had to go underwater, is she have a diving suit of some sort? Or what if she went to the Arctic? How does she stay warm? I mean, she's kind of dressed for the summer here, so maybe she has to have some fur on her or something like that, right? Um, so that'd be environmental, right? What if she was in a volcano or something? I don't know. What do you do? Like a heat? Yeah, like a reflective, firefighter kind of, suit. I don't know. And then, we had the gender swap thing. Um, yeah, we could play around with that, but that does require her then to possibly be have to be completely reskinned, you know, on the character. And then time travel, of course. Like, what if she went to medieval times, you know? And let's say I could replace the cybernetic arms here with like medieval knight's armor, right? And then I can replace this weapon with a broad axe or something like that. That might be kind of fun, actually. And actually, it would bring her to a theme that is closer to, well, it makes her less special, but, like the original theme of a fantasy character, right? So, I had brought like a fantasy character, pulled her into like a cybernetic future. But if we did go back into medieval times, she'd be kind of back to her place, right? Maybe she's lived all these thousands of years or whatever, and then this is her in the past at some point, right? So I'm trying to think of this, in various ways, right? You've got monetization for DLC if it was a game, right? You've got story-based alternate costumes, meaning like this character might have a flashback sequence or something if it's not in the game, if it's just in the story, right? Or think about a character's progression through your story, right? They look different at the beginning of the story than they do at the end, right? I had mentioned earlier, like Luke Skywalker, when he's on Tatooine as a farm boy, he's wearing that little, like, gi looking, thing on Tatooine, and it's kind of rural peasant costume, I guess. And then he goes to fight in the Great Rebellion against the Empire, and then he gets into his pilot uniforms. Like he's got new fresh studs, and he's got a nice, cool uniform, that kind of thing. So there's an alternate costume for that character. So that happens within a lot of movies, actually. I mean, you talk about Iron Man, for goodness sakes. He's got a suit for every occasion, and then sometimes when he's not even wearing a suit, the suits actually like come alive themselves, right? So, anyway, so these are the different things. So, I think for the first one, I might want to tackle, um, I think the time travel thing is really fun. So I'm thinking about that one, and and then the other one that I would like to do is maybe a holiday one. On the holiday one, I think I want to, push it further than just, changing up the colors. I'll probably give her like some kind of a witch's hat or something like that, right? Oh, this could be a broomstick. That'd be really fun, or a sickle, or like she's like, a reaper of some sort. That might be kind of cool too. But the sickle will completely change your shape. So you gotta kind of keep the relative shape of things, I think, some for this. Unless if I could come up with a sickle that was less, I don't know. We'll see. All right, cool. Um, let's tackle those two on our character, and then from there we'll play. So, first thing I want to do is I want to make a brand new layer over the top of this, and I want to fill it up with gray, just a desaturated gray, and you just want to fill that up, and then you set this layer on the blend modes over here, set it over to saturation. That brings it all the way back to black and white. I guess I could just, go back to my original black and white version as well. Yeah, yeah, that'd be the other way to do it. But this way I can like swap back and forth and kind of, go, you know, take a look at this. And the reason why is I want to do this is because I just want to sketch over it, you know? I don't want to like, yeah. Oh, and the second thing, what I'll do here is I want to fill this. and just lower the opacity to kind of fade it and maybe like make it brighter, make it lighter. Okay, there we go. So then now I have like, it's almost like a faded tracing paper overlay. And now I can draw on top of it. Okay. And I'm just gonna draw, right? So back to the themes. Which one should we tackle first? Uh, let's tackle the time travel one because I need some time to think about that weapon. Um, all right. So if she was a time traveler, right? Um, maybe like I had mentioned, this could be like a knight's uniform or something like that. So should probably look up some knights. You know. Oh yeah, I was looking up Labubus because of all the different accessories that you can get for Labubus. You know. I don't know who anybody collects these, but right now they're super expensive, and I think eventually they're just gonna crash the market on it, just like Beanie Babies. Oh yeah, knight armor. Let's look at knight armor. Yeah, like, ooh, there's a female. That's cool. It's got some chainmail, some armor here. Actually, yeah, let's look up female because then that will help with. Oh, I even have a back view. That's fantastic. This is great armor right here. That's really cool. And I like how it kind of has that little spike right there. Yes. Very nice. Okay, I'm just gonna copy image and just gonna paste it right in here. Oh, and it doesn't have to be big. I'm just going to shrink it down and put it off to the side, just so I have something to refer to for reference. Cool. You're like, you know, you're copying. No, I'm not. I just need something on my screen. And occasionally I'll run out of ideas and then I'll copy. But this is part of the research process, I think. Um, because somebody here has actually put this armor on this person, which also means that, well, that armor actually works. Meaning, the metal isn't shaped in a way where if she moves around, she's just gonna cut herself or hurt her or not be able to, How far up can she lift her arms? I don't know, but there may be a limitation, as there will be for most anything out there. So something kind of roundish here, and yeah, make sure that you draw it so that it goes through and behind. And I think I drew this too low, so let's go higher with it. Yeah, like that. And then over here we could put in some kind of a idea of a pivot or something. All right. And I want to draw it like with the center lines on there to kind of keep myself in check. And then over here, there may be a lot of movement happening, so you want to have these like little plates. They're like overlapping plates, like that. And then I already have that kind of a shape, so and sometimes you might actually see the underside of the armor, which is kind of neat. And I think I'm gonna stay with the hook. On this, I'm gonna say she has more of a spike. I think I'm gonna stick with the hook idea, and then there's gonna be something here, and then there's gonna be my armor here. I think I want. And I like how they cut it in a way where it kind of. Here, I'll just make it simple. Something like that. I don't really like that tangency, so I'm gonna. You either gotta overlap it, or you just don't want it to come to the point on the corner. Okay, so there's that gauntlet, and then we've got our, this part that will likely move a lot, so this will be plated as well. It's the medieval version of a, you know, armored soldier or armored character. Medieval robot, right? And we could still come back later and, add more stuff like a little, what they call fleur de lis or something. Basically to decorative stuff, you know, on the characters. So this I'm keeping. So there may be chainmail here now, on her. And then we've got, yeah, so instead of just a shirt, maybe it is kind of armored up a little bit. Kind of like this. And we can, that I believe didn't really exist. This is fantasy armor, having, because the problem there is if a sword struck right in the middle, it would just, cut right there. And so what they probably had more likely was something that was more to glance. But again, this is a fantasy story. So that's the question, right? How fantastical do you want to keep it, or do you want it to be like historically accurate? Did they actually have armor for women? Probably ceremonial armor, like for Queen Elizabeth. So that's kind of up to you on that one. I think for now I'm just gonna keep it kind of uniboob, and then we'll put the logo of the Raven on there. That'd be kind of fun to do. Also, I'm not entirely sure about this shape, because if she were to like do a sit-up or, bend down, she might poke herself with that. So if it does go down like that, I feel like it needs to round out at some point. So I'm kind of following this. And then we've got our hand here, so I'm going to come back and erase it and put in my fingers. This part can pretty much stay the same. Armor. And so now I have to also determine, like, what am I actually saying here? Am I saying that she has now human parts? Or like fleshy parts under? Or am I saying, like, she's still a cyborg underneath, and she just has medieval style armor over the top of it? So that's the question. And I think keep the cyborg underneath is probably best, and then it's just a different armor theme over the top of it. That might be, because then maybe I don't need the straps. And I don't need, I don't need the tube of whatever that is either. why would you, it's just extra metal. It's just extra metal, I guess. And maybe over here there might be like a little bit of a guard. Not too big because I don't want the spiky hair to clip into it, but just a little bit like that. And she might, I don't know, she might have chainmail here, or we just leave her as is. Okay, cool. And then we'll, do a Raven theme thing there and all that, but I kind of like this. Yeah, like I had mentioned, like this turned out to be, I was like, oh man, it's gonna be actually more work than I initially thought. So I was like, all right, because otherwise, the other way to do this is just to change up one accessory on the character and call it done. And it's like, eh. But then it's like, what's the point of the assignment if you're just gonna change up one little thing, you know? It might just be more fun to just actually put an effort into the costuming and make it cool. I think this is what it would look like. This is the inside of that gauntlet, so, or that wrist guard. The inside is going to be just the old, stuff, and then the outside is going to be the plated stuff, I believe. Something like that. Cool. And then, yeah, do I leave her midriff still open like that? Yeah, why not? It's a fantasy thing. Go for the stomach! Yeah, I know. She could be armored there, but we'll see. Could just change it to chainmail as well. But chainmail's tough to draw, honestly. Um, all the little. If I was gonna do that, I would make it first off. I would make it plate, like little scale armor, and then I would do a little bit here, and then kind of let it fade. Meaning, I don't draw every scale. Stylize it a bit, right? And maybe just for the sides, like this part could be like that, right? Maybe she has an additional. That might be alright to do.